Welcome back to the JumpifyLabs podcast, the show for founders who want growth without the guesswork. Here we talk about the systems driving predictable growth, and today we're joined by Colleen Bevenour, founder of Integral Business Leadership Academy, where what they do is they actually help growing companies execute the strategies they say they want. Colleen works with CEOs who are chasing growth, but also find themselves stuck in the chaos, stalled decisions, and teams that aren't built for the next level. Colleen, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jay, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really just so happy to be with you to have this conversation.
The pleasure's all mine. I'm just excited as well. Colleen, let's start. I want you to take us back. How did you first get into strategy and execution work?
Oh, boy. Well, it goes way back to my roots in training. And what I found was as we were training people, we'd have great results from the training program. In fact, we won a couple of awards for our training. And then I'd see the client 4 or 6 months later, and they'd be like, yeah, that was great, but nothing's changed. And that really ticked me off because that's not why we were doing what we were doing. So it drove me to try to understand what actually impacts business performance. And that led me to work a long time ago with a master black belt to figure out what the factors are that actually enhance business performance and impact execution and what derails companies from executing well.
You said something there that got me curious. I think about black belts like combat sports. What's a master black belt? A little bit of a tangent, but can you clarify that?
That's okay. So a master black belt in Six Sigma and Lean.
Okay. Yeah.
So you start a green belt like you do in what you described, right, in the sport. But in this case, it's all business focused and process design. And to achieve master black belt, that means you have the ability to train black belts. So I worked with a master who took everything from the process side of the business, and I came at it from the people side of the business. And together we were able to identify the 12 factors that most frequently derail execution.
Ooh, okay. So now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. All right. So you're working with the guru's guru, and the guru's guru gave you 12 items. I don't expect you to have all 12, but what are the major ones or major patterns to look out for if someone is in that growth stage?
Yeah, so let me clarify. He didn't give them to me. What we did is we did primary research with CEOs and executives into what was actually helping sustain business performance or derailing it. Plus, we leveraged our life experience. And so we actually ended up at about 200 factors. And then we said, that's too many. And we started narrowing it and winnowing it down to those that would have the greatest impact and happened most frequently. And so that's the model. We call it the signal model because you can look for signals that these things are going well and signals that they're about to derail you. And so of the 12, there are 3 that, Jay, it doesn't matter who I'm talking to, these come up every single time, whether I'm talking to an executive in a global pharma company or somebody who is just starting out, or in this case, a growth stage CEO who's trying to scale their organization. There's 3 that come back every time. The first one, you tell me if you want me to stop in between if you have a clarifying question, but the first one is sustaining focus over time. And what I mean by that is a lot of entrepreneurs get very excited about what they see and what they're doing, which they should. They should have that passion. But sometimes they get a little schizophrenic and they get excited about a next new thing or an iteration, and it derails the company's focus, the team's ability to execute on the original plan. So sustaining that focus over time is really, really critical. It's like putting a football team on a field and then suddenly changing it to hockey. Right? You're not prepared. Now you're on ice, right? I have on these and I need ice skates, right? So it changes everything. It shifts everybody's focus. So unless you have a really strong, valid strategic reason to shift that focus, you've got to sustain your plan until it realizes the benefit that you really intended it to have. So that's the first one. The second one is decision making. This comes up every meeting with every leader I've ever worked with. And the problem in growth stage companies is as a CEO is planning for the future, right? As they are moving towards that scaling that they so desire, they're going to bring people on board. And they're going to bring on their first leaders. And then one of 2 things happens. Either they trust their people, that they brought on and they made great hiring decisions and they let go of those decisions, or they don't trust their people or their ego's involved and they stay down in the details. And so what happens is those leaders that were brought on early try to make decisions in their areas of expertise, and the CEO is still in the weeds. What we want to see is CEOs lift their heads up and they focus on the future and taking that company where it needs to go, getting the funding it needs, continuing to make those important decisions, while the people that they're entrusting actually are freed up to make the decisions they've hired them to make and are paying them to make. And then investors, when they look at the company, say, that's the right team to take this product to market. So that's the second one.
Mm-hmm.
The third one you mentioned, and the old, what got you here won't get you there, right? We've all heard that phrase. But if you take that in terms of skills and capabilities in a growth stage company, it's really, really true. So the skills and capabilities that it takes a CEO and his or her, first team to get the product to market and get funding, right? Maybe you have your seed round and your A round. That's vastly different than what it takes an organization to grow to the next stage. Geographic expansion, new product introductions. But what we see happen is all the energy is going towards product and market and not necessarily to the people. And they expand and scale beyond the capabilities and skills of the people they have on board. And then you start to see turnover. And that's not good. There's no reason to do that because you can invest in your people. So I like to say that chaos or growth creates chaos. And it's in all of those three areas. You can prevent a lot of the chaos by planning for it.
Yeah, definitely. You plan for it, but then it's also hard to realize that you're actually doing it when you're in the process yourself, right? So how quickly can you walk into a company and then actually spot the bottlenecks?
It's actually quite easy. And the reason is because I can't not think in this framework. And so we listen for signals, right? That's why we call it the signal model. So we just are able to ask a few questions as you listen to the leaders. They also know the problems. So it's not as if I have some magic power and I'm going in to unearth the problems. Ask any CEO, what's getting in the way of your business? And they'll tell you like this. It's just so fast. Or their team will tell you. Everybody knows most frequently, but they may not have the capacity or expertise to figure out how to solve it. And that's where outside help or a new hire, bringing in a leader who knows those kinds of things, how to run a business better, is a really good idea.
Yeah, of course. And it's just being an objective pair of eyes and objective opinion that's outside can just help you to become a lot more self-aware. Because a lot of times they know the issues, but they don't do, like, I know I should probably eat less cupcakes, but I'm not stopping.
Right.
If my girlfriend comes in here with a carrot cupcake, I'm going to keep doing it anyways.
Exactly. And it's hard. It's really hard, especially when the decisions start to involve people and what's going to happen to the company. And maybe it's not turning out exactly as the CEO hoped or the original team hoped. That's okay. But having that nimbleness to be able to make trade-off decisions that are still aligned to the original strategy that you had, unless you've changed that, then you can do it, right? That's the thing. You can make hard decisions. You've made hard decisions in the past, right?
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so I want to talk about the first mistake, the lack of strategic focus part, because you mentioned a term which I'd like you to unpack, strategic whiplash. What's the most extreme case you've seen?
So I would say working with a CEO who's trying to grow their business from 6 to 20 and then 20 to 25. Okay. And this particular CEO has a history of changing her mind over and over and over again. She's had the same team from the beginning in her leadership positions. She knows exactly which two people are not right for role, and those people are still employed. Right? So you've got a CEO who got to the 20, executed an asset acquisition model, so geographic expansion through acquisition versus new product introduction, and 6 years later is facing the exact same problems that they were 6 years ago for the exact same reasons. So I want to grow my company. I'm ready to exit. I want to prepare for that exit. well, here's the same things that you should have done 6 years ago and you still haven't done. So I'm not sure if I'm answering the exact question you have, Jay, but that one comes to mind because it's that failure to do the hard thing that you know you have to do to achieve the growth that you want to achieve. If you don't have the stomach for it, don't go into business. Business is hard.
Yeah, and what was the outcome from that? I mean, they're dealing with the same problem, but what were some of the results that came from not solving it and still on the grind for those many years?
So in this particular case, the asset acquisition strategy has paid off. They're well positioned for an exit if they want to. The team will be discarded as soon as that exit happens. And that's something that that individual CEO has had to come to terms with, and that's something that she created, right? So as she exits and satisfies that need that she has had, she's actually hurting the people that she said she cared the most about. So, and I don't mean to make this all squishy, but these are the hard decisions that CEOs of growth stage companies have to make all of the time. That what the people that brought you where you are not necessarily the people who are going to take you to the future. And you're honoring them if you help get them into a role where they can succeed. Because everybody knows. Everybody knows when somebody's not succeeding. The person knows, the CEO knows, and the whole team knows. And the sooner you solve those people challenges, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah. Oh, that's really well said. Thanks for adding some context behind that. It reminds me a lot about another guest that I had on. He mentioned that we say that our companies are like our families, but it's not. It's a team. And he says that teams are together for a season, but in order to get to the next level, there's different seasons, and sometimes players go, sometimes new players come on. And that really was a big unlock for me. And you seem to have figured that part out as well. I want to talk about now the second big mistake, which is the decision-making bottlenecks, because you have a four decision rights framework that you like to execute with. But could you walk us through that?
So decision-making is one of the greatest challenges, and it gets more and more complex as the company grows. You know, picture an org chart, right? When it's just the CEO, his or her name is in all the boxes. And as you add people, the CEO's name comes out and they're replaced by other people. And as you add people, the decision-making changes. Because if I'm in charge, I get to make all the decisions, but I can't make all the decisions as I grow this company, right? If I go all the way to a large global organization, you have the most complex, ridiculous decision-making processes that actually never happen. Decisions are rarely actually made and implemented because it gets so complex. If you bring in a big consultant, they're going to tell you, oh, you need decision processes and decision approaches and decision rights, and it's all crazy. And you do. But if we could do one thing today in our organizations and implement this one framework we use, we would solve so many problems. And here's the framework. It's scary simple. You ready, Jay?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
So ready.
All right. So let's say I'm the boss and you're on my team, okay? So Jay, we've got 4 options as we move forward. We're going to talk about the types of decisions that we need to make in your part of the organization over the next 6 months. Okay, let's list out a few. So we talk through it. Okay. All right, now we've got all these decisions out there, Jay. We've got a bunch of different types. We're going to have 4 options for these decisions, and we're going to go through them for each decision. First option is I decide. Okay, I'm just going to make that decision. The next option is you decide. You get to make that decision. Okay, that sounds ridiculously simple, but we're never, ever, ever that straightforward with people. I've never seen it. The third option is I'm going to decide, but I want your input. So it's not a democratic process. We're not each going to get a vote. It's I'm going to make that final decision, but you're an expert. I hired you for your expertise. I want your input. And the fourth one is you're going to decide with my input. So it's the reversal. So I'm not going to take that decision. I'm not going to give you input and then make you make my decision. I want you to come to me and say, I'm about to go through this process and would like your input. And then you can make the decision and disagree with my input, but you get the decision and the accountability for the decision afterwards. I decide, you decide, I decide with your input, you decide with my input. If leaders today, if CEOs of growth stage organizations would put that into place, decision-making becomes much faster. Everybody knows where they stand. It's simple, it's straightforward, and we have found it work really well.
Beautifully elegant.
Exactly. So
Magnificently
Pelican
simple.
in its simplicity, right?
Yeah, that's really well said. I mean, that would simplify everything. Four buckets, simple, easy to remember, very useful, very applicable and practical. Amazing. I think when you shared that, I was just like, we need to just share this
Do it.
to more people.
Well, think about it this way. Think about a partnership, right? So you've got two guys that go into business and it's going to be a tech company. Their product is tech. You've got one that's the techie guy and one that's the business guy. Who gets the decisions on the next feature for the technology, right? If they both think they have the decision, then they're going to go off in different directions. But if they can respect each other enough, and that's what it really is, it's respecting the expertise that brought you together in the first place and saying, okay, tech guy, CTO, you're going to make those decisions with my input because I'm listening to the marketplace. I'm hearing what's going on, same as you are, and I'm going to have a different point of view, and I want to be able to share that point of view with you. But if they don't have these conversations, they butt heads, and that's how you see partnerships dissolve and arguments happen, right? And then as they bring other leaders on board, it's the same thing. Get this right, and it will smooth out your scaling so much because as CEO, you're investing in hiring, hopefully not based on your ego, you're hiring really good people and you're trusting them to make the decisions you've hired them to make. And you get out of the weeds and lift your head up and go get funding, right?
Wow. Yeah. I think that needs to be like a plastered in organization somewhere, like decision making process and falling into four different buckets and then use that when you delegate, when you collaborate. I mean, it would be so helpful in so many areas.
Yeah, instead of putting values on a wall that nobody listens to, or we are a family, just but I decide, you decide, I decide with your input, you decide with mine.
Yeah. Super simple. Okay, let's touch base on the third mistake where we're not promoting technicians into leaders and giving them the space to actually lead. First off, why do technical inclined people struggle when they go into the leadership roles?
Yeah, and it's I don't want you to take this as like I'm being critical of those that are technically capable, right? That's not my expertise, that's not my skill set. And I have a lot of respect for those that have that. Like I wish I did. But what we find is the tech expert is building the product based on their expertise. And they might even be able to get that early stage funding. They get their friends and family, their seed round, and maybe even take it to A round, right? Because they know the product, they know the technology, they know what the needs are. And they have the right people involved to help them build. Then what happens is you have a business on your hands. And that person that's technologically expert may not have ever had the chance to build business skills. And I don't even mean necessarily finance, because you can get a lot of support on the finance side, but it's the ability to lead and manage a business as it grows that becomes really challenging. And so it's around that time, A or B round, where we would see the person that founded the company, the investors are influencing that person to move over into a CTO role so that a CEO can be hired. And so if we can acknowledge that it's a different skill set, the technologist, my gosh, he or she can learn business skills. It's not that it's impossible. It's just that we have to acknowledge that it is a different skill set. And it's different experiences that lead somebody to be able to do both things. So, I mean, my advice would be to the early stage tech person, make sure you're building your business skills. On the business side, if your product is in AI or technology, by golly, get to know the space so that you understand the decisions you're making for your company. But it's not, Jay, just tech versus business. It's really everything, right? So imagine your early stage company. You've got maybe I don't know, you've got your CEO, you've got your product development person, and maybe you've got a couple doers, right? Individual contributors. Well, now you're growing and you're going to move those people up into management. Have you prepared them? Right? Right. So back to football, you put a team on the field and the game shifts and you were on offense and now you're on defense. You just leave the same players on the field. Or you guys won last week, don't worry about it. We're not even going to have practice next season because we're so good. And that's how teams would fail, right? And that's how teams fail in business too, because you don't keep developing the people you have. You just assume, oh, they're smart. They'll get it over time. They'll figure it out. That's disrespectful. We didn't figure it out. We learned by learning, by experiencing, by being coached, by being mentored, by screwing up, right? I can look back over my career and I can point at, yep, that was a mess. That was a screw up. That was a terrible hire. That was a bad decision. And then I can look back and say, and here's the times it was great. So just to assume people are going to learn because you gave them a title doesn't happen. And you disserve them and you screw up your business.
Colleen, you are just dropping bombs left, right, and center. This is so good. Okay, I do want to be respectful of your time. You've covered the top three, and you've given some practical, easy ways to solve them. Somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, okay, that might be me, or maybe let me get an objective pair of eyes, someone who's been there to kind of help me spot my blind spots. Because we've only covered 3 out of the 200.
Right. Well, there's 12. We settled on 12, Jay.
Yeah, you had 200. We narrowed it down to 12. We've
Right.
covered the top 3. So hopefully we've covered a broad spectrum. There's still a lot left. So if anyone wants to reach out to possibly maybe get some help with the first 3, or maybe find out more about the remaining 9, where should they go?
So I'm obviously on LinkedIn, so you can send me a message on LinkedIn. And my email is colleen@integrabla.com. Or you can even text me at 856-371-3136, and I will respond, and we'll get on the phone, and I can take you and your leadership team through. We have a diagnostic workshop that we would do, right? We take you through the 12, and you'll know by the end which are the ones that are going to get in your way right away. Pretty straightforward.
Very cool. Colleen, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for also sharing your contact details. If you are interested in reaching out to Colleen, text first, maybe then, because we all avoid the calls that we don't know, but send her a text. Maybe you guys can get it on and have a conversation. And if you like listening to Colleen and open to hearing some more from other leaders that are pushing the envelope for growth, be sure to tune in to Jumpify Labs for more. My name is Jay. Thanks so much. Take care.